All right, well, I figured I want to make a video about grading plan. Before I do, this is our original house. This house was here. Um, and they did a really good job with generally the pad and how big the pad is. But I think they really could have done better right here. So here's the driveway. Here's the driveway coming up. Here's the garage. When you want to pull into here, you really can't swing this right in. Basically, what we're forced to do is come up, kind of pull this direction and back into the garage, which I'm cool with. I drive cars every day as part of my job in tight parking lots, so that's no problem for me. My wife too, she's sharp. She can park anything anywhere now, but it took us some time to come stand out here and say, look, here's how you're gonna have to do this, to get the two cars in and not be able to do it straight. You got to kind of make a plan for where you're gonna land the front tires when you pull here with the back. It was just a whole big parking lesson, so we're making it work. But basically we got from the front of the garage here to that rock is about 30 feet, which really means about 25 of this is usable, and we can go over into the DG and the leaves there if we want. But they really could have done better on this. Obviously, this rock was a problem, and this is kind of the point. So let's head out to the new place, the pad. All right, so I'm just about here, but you can already tell I've really made a plan for a huge approach, and that's actually why I moved the building in this direction rather than squaring it up to where the house faces. I wanted it to be a really nice, easy approach. So right here, if we were to bring in an RV, we could easily just round this turn right here and boom, straight shot for the RV garage. Real easy for the two-car garage. But this is, this, to my feet to there is like 50 feet. So I mean, if you want a really nice clean shot, you're going to need as much space as you can have. And that was part of where I was deciding exactly where to place the building. This was a high priority here, getting this approach really good, because we've been dealing with that one over there. And like I said, it's fine. But if I could have redone or had, some insight on the people 25 years ago who built that house, I would have maybe suggested they try to move it this way more, which would have been a problem because, as you see, they had to build up that slope. But just, man, just even 5 more feet would have made that driveway a lot easier. So as much room as you can on the parking side will make a big difference. And now, as for the space around the building, I do want to talk about that a little bit. I would come. Let's say you buy the land, right, and there's some beautiful lots around here. I mean, that lot up there, it's sweet because it's big, it's relatively flat, it's got a view. It wouldn't be my personal choice, but there's much nicer lots like way up on top of some of those hills. But you're just not going to end up with a big enough. I'm going to tell you, this pad seemed huge, and now that the building is there, there's enough room, but not much. So we needed a lot of room right here because of the septic tanks. You also need a lot of room outside the house. You can't have 3 feet and then a hill, because you have to obtain a finished grade where generally the water is going to run away from the house or be basically flat. You can't really have it sloping back towards the house. And so, here we've got maybe about 30 feet to the furthest point. In some places less. I mean, this is under 20 for sure. This is about only 15 feet. And exactly how much you need, I'm not sure if there's rules or laws, but here, I had to hire a civil engineer, and they had to do all this calculations and get it approved. So again, we got pretty good amount of space here. I'd say from building to the side, 30 feet. But then by the time we added the deck, this is 10 feet. The walkway is 5. This is about 4. Next thing you know, I mean, I'm only really in paces. 1, 2, 3, 4 paces, maybe up to 5 or 6 paces. So you figure under 20 feet for whatever we're gonna do here, grass or turf or landscaping. So this pad seemed huge until we got the building up and got the deck and the patio, and I had to put in some drainage stuff here. And just the pad space gets just sucked up really fast. So back here again, minimal room. I'm overall really happy with it, and also because I sloped it this way and I kind of bermed this up. We've got drainage type of stuff here, and same with there, and then there's one more over there. So this I would say is the minimum. I would not go with any less space around the building than this. This is overall going to be low maintenance. We're not looking to have this place have a big grass yard and things like that. So this is really what we wanted to do. But my point being, check my grading plans out and I'll explain why. All right, so these are my grading plans. This is a full size 3 feet by 2 feet sheet. So this is the front page. This is page 1. It doesn't have a ton of info, but they had to approve it, sign it off. A few things that I want to also mention here. They look at the whole entire lot, right? So here's our main house, and they also wanted to know, fire department needed to know where the fire truck's going to go. Is there going to be space for 2 fire trucks to pass each other? So all that stuff had to be spec'd out. And same in the front, it's a little hard to see, but you see this T-shaped thing. That was the fire truck turnaround. So they did require that to be 80 feet wide, 80 feet wide overall, with 20-foot lanes basically, and then enough room to turn around, which I think that ended up being less than 80 right here. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but it was all specified how much space to be able to turn a fire truck around in front of the structure. So that immediately started cutting into the pad space and making us push the building, further back. But I was okay with that too, because I wanted that nice clean approach. So this is all stuff to consider that I didn't know. The pad is going to have to be way bigger than you would think to get approved and also to even be really usable. So basically I told them, this is the shape of the building that I want. These are the sides. I didn't have the building designed, but I had a pretty good idea of the footprint of the building. So by the time you go to do a grading plan, this I had to hire out. This was about $4,000 or $5,000 to do this. So they came and did a topographical measurement and a survey, and mapped everything out and pulled distances from the survey markers to establish exactly where this building was going to be. And then they drew this up, and it basically said, this is what the finished, they call the precise grade, is going to be, specifying elevations. For ours is 2,281 is the finished pad. FF is finished floor, 2,281 and a half. So we got the slab about a half-inch high from the pad, so that way water would never run up against the wall and try to come in through the foundation or whatever. So when we did this, she was really good. She's an architect and her husband's a civil engineer. So you got to find the right person who's going to work with you. And she talked it out, and we talked about where the building would be and the placement and whatever. And basically, we came up with this. And I would say, like I said, this is the minimum. So you're talking 25 feet for the largest part of the quote-unquote yard, and then at some points it's going to be less. And then what their job is really going to do is going to be to map this out and explain where, based on the size and the slope, where you might need these drainage pads like I showed you out there. And there's a lot of stuff that I was unfamiliar with. And this is something you really can't do. So someone is going to have to do this, and they're more than likely going to have a civil engineer stamp. And to get this approved, I had to get them to stamp it and wet sign it, and I had to turn it in. And that was just to get the grading permit. And when they did come, there were a few things that they were concerned about. So this was the existing concrete drive, and they were saying, well, right here it goes from concrete to like DG, decomposed granite, like, oh, you need to add that. So they allowed me to draw that in right there at the county inspection, or at the office. They said, yeah, you need to put a gravel pad in there, gravel pad in there. I ended up doing better. I ended up graveling the whole road, but that was just as a minimum to get it approved. And then one thing that was interesting, where I was placing the building, I was trying to get pretty close to the back, And we ran into a problem. And so I'm going to show you that page. So get rid of page 1. And this talks about how much dirt is going to be moved. And it also specs that we're going to do a 3 foot over X. So here's where the building is going to be. That's the pad. And then the foundation would end right here at this wall. But they spec'd we need to do 3 feet over X, including 5 foot outside the building, meaning that, like I said in the previous video, we had to pull 3 feet of extra dirt out, sift it, screen it, make sure there was no aggregate about larger than my fist, and then bring the dirt back in, wet it, compact it, have a soils engineer come out and measure the compaction and the moisture and all. The soils engineer did their thing, and they did a separate report, which was additional money. I'm going to say maybe about $1,500. And then I had to turn that in to get the graded pad signed off. And once the graded pad was signed off, then I could actually proceed to the physical building. Now, one thing we ran into is a huge rock. Now, depending on where you're at, maybe rocks are a thing, maybe rocks are not a thing. But there's one huge rock, I'm going to go out and look at it in person, that was just, it was just massive. I mean, it was 25 feet in the ground, huge rock. Of course, an excellent foundation itself. So what we did, I went back to actually my architect, and my architect talked with his engineer, and they got together and said, hey, you can actually anchor to that boulder. And so he wrote all this up, existing location of the monolithic granite boulder. It gave me specs on exactly what to do right here, right? So I was gonna grind that boulder down, make it flat, kind of recess it, drill down 18 inches, pin these rods in, epoxy them with specific, matter of fact, I just returned it. It was some Simpson structural adhesive that was specifically for this. It was all called out here. So you may know what might work, but that doesn't matter. It's what's going to be approved. So they had to basically do this, and then I had to resubmit, and they said, okay, we'll let you pin to that boulder rather than have that boulder gone. But to do that, you're going to have to bring in a deputy witness who's going to basically watch you do your work. So this guy came and literally watched me do all of my work, and observed that I did it correct, and observed that what I did matched this design, and basically then signed it off. So I had to submit these two to get signed off on that. Let me show you what that boulder actually looks like. All right, so we can get around the corner here. And it's sweet. I still really want to clean it and pressure wash it. And, you know, it's going to be like the cornerstone boulder here. So the thing's a beast. So this is where I did all the work. And they did do the observation and all that stuff. It's all legit. It all got signed off. But, you know, I had to get it approved. So I guess in retrospect of doing this job, I learned a few things about the grading. I would say, you know, I would have really walked the lot. I did do this, but I'm saying, like, for anyone else, you could look at a lot. You should really walk it and get an idea what type of rock is in the ground, where exactly the pad's going to be, how much room it's going to leave, all this type of stuff, so that you find out, is the pad really big enough? Because as you'll see in the next video, when I started this and we started talking about laying the building out, this pad looked just massive, and that little rock was just like the tip of the iceberg. And I'm like, no big deal, whatever, we'll bust it out. And with all the equipment and all the stuff, they couldn't move that rock, which was a problem, because the next step was actually going to be to move the building forward, which was going to encroach on the driveway approach, which was also going to blow out the fire truck turnaround. And all of a sudden that rock was a big problem. So the next fix was actually going to be to bring in a rock popper, and they were going to basically drill into it and put in gunpowder, or they make different epoxies, park a machine over it and actually cleave the rock and crack it and bust it, just break the rock into pieces. And it was going to be a big nightmare. So I got, well, I would say maybe kind of lucky as to exactly where that rock placement was, so I could land the post on it. And I did tweak the building a little bit just to make it land there. But there's a lot of variables on this, and a lot of things to consider. And the thing is, if you know, there's can't really see it, but there's a really awesome lot, like about 2 miles that way. It's way up high. It's got an amazing view, but when I drove up, the pad's just too small. I didn't know that, 2 years ago, but I know it now. So that's why anybody who knows what they're doing, they're gonna look at the size of the pad. They're gonna say, you know what, that is not gonna make a big enough pad. And you can build the most beautiful place you want, but if you don't have any room, or you don't have the room you want, you can't really make more room. You could always change the building, do an addition, do a whatever, but basically when they came and did this grading work, this is it. It's done. I'm not going to get any more than this, which is fine. This is exactly what I wanted. So that's my little retrospective 2 cents on this process. The actual grading will be the next videos. The grading's obviously done. Did the grading, over a year ago now, but I want to do this video to explain how I came up with, the pad and how you actually get the grading permits. You need the civil engineer, and everybody has to get together and do their thing, and it's going to cost money, and then a whole lot of fees. I think the county fees were another $4,000 on that. Plus they added a quality management permit. Additionally, that was another $2,000. That's for them to check the silt screens and all this junk. So I had the straw wattle and some mesh right here that was jute netting and all kinds of stuff. And they would come and periodically check, make sure I'm not having any runoff and whatever. So hope that helps you.